This week's episode of One Punch Man has bicycling superheroes, giant robot suits, and the introduction of Saitama's new rival, Speedo Sound Sonic, the Deadly Ninja. What? Saitama's quest for recognition continues in this week's action-packed episode of One Punch Man. The introduction of Speedo Sound Sonic was pretty freaking ninja-rific. I love this character. I really love stuff that involves ninjas. That's why I'm such a big fan of Naruto, and I love the design of this character. I especially love the way they animate him. His overall speed, and the fact that when he runs, he literally looks like he is breaking the sound barrier as he is sprinting towards his enemies. He's so freaking devilishly evil, and yet at the same time, he's not exactly a bad guy either, and that's what's really interesting about this guy, because he's a brand new rival for Saitama, but he's not a hero, and he's not a villain. He's basically just a bodyguard for hire, but he definitely has his ninja pride, and when he confronts Saitama at the end of this week's episode, his pride is shattered, just like his sword, when he realizes that there's someone out there who's way stronger than he is, and now he's going to have to strive to become much stronger. I really hope we're going to see more of this character in the future, and I know we are. What I will say, though, is that this entire episode was really great, because Saitama really wasn't even in it all that much. He mostly just appeared at the very end of the episode. This episode right here just sort of expanded on what the other characters of the show were going to be like. There was another superhero who showed up this week who goes by the name of Mumen Rider, who basically is just this guy who's wearing a little bit of armor, sunglasses, and he's riding around on a bike and just sort of driving around and trying to help people, whether it means getting stuff out of a tree or confronting a gang and getting your head kicked in. That's pretty much what he is there for. He's the kick-ass of the series, and I have a feeling he's going to probably be the butt of many a joke. But the main story from this week's episode is that there's this radical group which is known as the Paradisers. This group of bald people who are actually using these giant robot battle suits so that they can take control of all society. And these suits are really powerful. They can actually punch a building and completely knock it over. It's nearly on Saitama's level, except that it's just does have its limitations. It is technology, and the fact that they are led by a complete and total moron who goes by the name of Hammerhead. This character also just happens to be voiced by the same guy who does the voices of both Obito Uchiha from Naruto and Knuckle Bind from Hunter x Hunter. It's such a recognizable voice, and he adds a lot of character to this guy, who's basically just a big bumbling fool, and he has this plan where they're going to go to this one big mob boss's, tower that he owns in the middle of the city, which just so happens to have a giant golden turd at the top of it. I don't know, Japan's weird. So, they're going to try and destroy this place, but unfortunately for them, this boss actually has a bodyguard who is Speedo Sound Sonic, who is incredibly powerful, and he finds the Paradisers and pretty much decapitates all of them in one sequence. This is definitely one of the coolest parts of the episode, getting to see him sort of move and teleport around while effortlessly just cutting off all of these guys' heads, cutting them off so fast that it takes just a split second for them to start bleeding because his cuts are so clean. Wah! Then he goes toe-to-toe with Hammerhead himself, which is a really explosive, earth-shattering battle. And this is because Hammerhead is literally destroying the earth around him and trying to trap him in between all of these boulders. And a move that I thought was actually really clever, because what he was hoping to do is try to make him think like he was going to throw a rock at him. What he actually does is he picks up this giant tree, which he slams down on top, which basically would give Speedo Sound Sonic no way to escape the attack. But he's so fast that he gets right behind him and just finishes him off by throwing a kunai knife right at his head, which just gets stuck in his skull, and luckily this guy has a really thick skull, which actually manages to save him a couple times in this episode. So he actually ends up escaping, but he runs into Saitama, and this is where one of the other big jokes of the episode comes in, because the Paradiser gang is known for being like all these bald guys, and Saitama is bald himself, and he doesn't want to make a bad name, so he decides he's going to go out and take out these guys so they're not going to make them look bad anymore. And when they actually meet each other, Hammerhead actually thinks that Saitama is trying to join the group, and he powers up his suit, getting ready to fight him. Really, really badass punch scene, but it all ends when Saitama just basically taps him and destroys his armor, leaving him completely buck naked as he runs into the forest, screaming like a little girl. And honestly, that's not the end of Hammerhead. Apparently there's going to be this other story which is going to be involving these weird robot people or these cyborgs which might actually have a connection to Genos. And they find Hammerhead and they beat the crap out of him and leave him for dead, but he still manages to survive thanks to his thick skull. But who are these guys? They look really awesome. One of them looks like this guy wearing this battle armor, but you can't really see any of his features because he's completely covered by all of it. And he's joined by this weird robot assistant which has all of these multiple arms and everything. I have no idea what this shit is, but I have a feeling it is going to be connected to Genos in some sense. It sort of has like that same feel to it. And the episode ends on a very high note and a very great joke, which is the reason that Saitama is not getting any recognition from anyone is that apparently if you're a hero in this world, you can actually register and be a part of this association, and you'll actually get credit for the things that you do. And Genos doesn't want to do it because he's a genuine superhero and doesn't really want like any thanks from anyone. And that's really the difference between the characters, which is funny because Saitama just really wants popularity. And so he's going to decide to register, and he promises Genos that if he registers with him, that he will make him his disciple. Ending this week's ridiculously ninja-filled episode. And how could I forget the scene where Saitama actually ends up punching Speedo Sound Sonic in the balls? It's a complete accident, of course, but just to put it in perspective a little bit, as a guy, it hurts a lot when something just barely taps your balls in the wrong way. Getting hit by Saitama has got to be excruciatingly painful, and you can really see that on Speedo Sound Sonic's face. Wear a cup next time. Hell, the cup wouldn't even help against Saitama. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Punch Man? Just another insane episode introducing more of the characters. I think one of the biggest jokes about this one, though, is probably with Mumen Rider, because he does get his ass handed to him completely off screen, but he actually ends up being the hero, and the reason that Saitama learns about the hero registry, because he's the one who actually takes all of the credit for taking out the Paradisers. They just sort of find him, they interview him, they stitch him up, and he seems to be all good. I really would like to see this character return and maybe kind of make him a little more important. Maybe he could be like a running joke of the series. I think that would be really good. And he has to be slightly important because they show him in the intro of the show, which is doing what he always does, which is just, you know, running around on his bicycle. It was really funny when he ran into the Paradisers and wasn't intimidating at all when he just slowly got off his bike and ran around, got into a fighting pose, and then announced who he was. It was pretty ridiculous. He even happened to have some fans on the side of the street. At this point, Mumen Rider is like the Yamcha of the show. Without a doubt, though, the real star of this week's episode is Speedo Sound Sonic. He is such an amazingly expressive and badass character, and he manages to be really crazy at times. Like, he has a real dark side to him, especially at the end of the episode when Saitama allows him to use some of his more powerful abilities, which don't really do anything, especially that one big spinning attack at the end where he got right up in Saitama's face, but Saitama just managed to stare at him, kind of like that one scene when he was fighting against Carnage Kabuto, except that you could see that he really was moving it in an extreme fast motion, like, and still having complete control over the battle. It's so insane how powerful Saitama is. I cannot wait to see the real truth behind how he actually got his power. I still refuse to believe that this guy is so strong because he just did that standard strength training. There's gotta be, like, something missing from this story. Some element that either he forgot or he is completely oblivious to. And whenever they reveal what that is, I'm sure it's going to be hilarious as all hell. What I will say is, this episode right here was really fun. It featured some great ninja action, some really cool villains, some Saitama punching scenes, and it was just as entertaining as the other episodes. One Punch Man is, without a doubt, one of the best action series I've ever seen, and I still believe it to be one of the best shows of the fall 2015 season. So I'm going to give this week's episode another 5 out of 5. This series is really knocking it out of the park every single week, and I cannot wait to see what's going to happen next because we're about to probably be introduced to a lot of brand new heroes and villains now that we're about to go through this whole registry arc. At least that's what I'm going to refer to it as. So 5 out of 5 from me, but I want to hear from you guys. Did you watch this week's episode of One Punch Man? What did you think about the introduction of the Ninja Speedo Sound Sonic or Mumen Rider? And what do you want to see from the rest of the One Punch Man anime series? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby! you will feel much of my fist in your ass!